Okay, so let's just dive right in. We're starting today with, well, maybe the fundamental philosophical question.
The big one.
The biggest one, yeah. What is the actual definition of good and evil?
It really is the age-old question.
Right, and I don't mean, the legal definition. I get that stealing a car is bad because, well, I'll go to jail. I'm talking about the existential definition. Is it subjective?
Or is there some eternal standard?
Exactly. Is there something written into the fabric of the universe that defines good just as, I don't know, rigidly as gravity defines down?
And usually we look to philosophy, maybe law, for that answer.
Right.
But today we're looking at a very specific, a very distinctive theological framework.
We're doing a deep dive into a speech titled Jesus' Standard of Goodness and the Restoration of True Love, given by Myung Moon around 1983.
And we should probably set the stage for you. This is not a standard sermon about, being nice to your neighbor.
Not at all. This text tries to explain the actual mechanics of the universe, the emotional life of God, and frankly, a pretty controversial take on the mission of Jesus.
It challenges a lot of traditional views right out of the gate.
It really does.
And the mission of this deep dive is to explore that framework. We're not here to debate it or take sides, but just to understand the internal logic of the text.
Because it presents a worldview where everything, the physical and the spiritual, is tied completely to relationships.
And it starts by challenging that traditional idea of creation.
Right. I think most people, if they know the Bible at all, they think of Genesis. God speaks, let there be light, and poof, there's light. It's effortless. It's like magic. But this source says, hold on, it wasn't that easy.
Exactly. The text argues that, creation wasn't magic. It was the creator projecting himself into form. And the premise here, and this is really the key concept to get your head around, is what the text calls the lonely God.
Which is such a fascinating image.
Yeah.
We usually think of God as this all-powerful being, totally content. But the text suggests that before anything existed, God was essentially alone.
The text argues that before creation, God was actually self-centered. Now, he clarifies this wasn't in a malicious way.
Right.
He was self-centered simply because there was no one else to care for. But the text posits that God is, by definition, love. And love can't exist in a vacuum.
You can't love if there's nobody there to receive that love.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So the moment he started creating, it was driven by a need. He needed an object to love. And because of that, it wasn't a snap of the fingers. The source uses this great analogy of a great artist.
Yeah, I really like this part. If you're an artist and you want to create a masterpiece, you don't just wave a wand.
Yeah.
You pour your sweat, your blood, your entire soul into it.
That's the comparison. The text says God invested everything, 100% of his energy, to create a second self, which is us, human beings.
Wow.
He didn't save an ounce of energy. The argument is that God created humans because he literally could not exist as a being of love without a partner to receive that love. He ingested, and this is a quote, bone and marrow into the work.
That just changes the dynamic completely. It's not a king making subjects. It's an artist pouring themselves into a work so they won't be lonely anymore. And this leads us directly into how the text defines goodness. Because if God is total investment, then goodness must be a certain type of motion.
And this is where it gets really interesting, almost like the physics of this theology. The text defines goodness as total giving.
Okay.
It introduces the principle of give and take.
Yeah.
The subject exists for the object, and the object exists for the subject. It's this reciprocal relationship.
And the author points out that you see this everywhere in nature. It's not just some abstract spiritual rule, it's a physical one.
Right, like everything is round or moves in circles.
Exactly. He points to the sun, the moon, the earth, even our own bodies. Our eyeballs are round, our blood circulates in a loop. The text argues that this circular motion is literally created by the action of giving and taking. If you give and receive, energy flows. If you stop giving, the circle breaks.
So goodness isn't a static list of do's and don'ts. Goodness is flow. Goodness is maintaining that circle.
Exactly. And when that flow is perfect, you get what the source calls the love orchestra.
That was such a great image.
It really is. It says that if you live in this total harmony of giving, even the plants and the animals and the insects, they join your love orchestra. It's a very poetic way of saying you become synchronized with the universe. You aren't fighting the current, you are the current.
It's beautiful. But that brings us to the inevitable flip side. If goodness is circular motion created by living for others, then what is evil?
The text is pretty blunt about this. Evil isn't just a bad deed or breaking a rule.
Yeah.
It's the emergence of selfishness.
Precisely. It's the disruption of that circular motion. It's the attitude that says, I exist for myself. I want to be served. And the text traces this back to a very specific origin story.
Yeah, the fall of man and Satan. The Satan narrative here is very specific, isn't it? It describes him not just as a monster, but as a fallen archangel.
An archangel who, in the text's hierarchy, was created to be a servant. The intended order was God loves Adam and Eve, his children, and the archangel serves and protects them.
But the text argues the archangel got jealous.
Right. He wanted the love and the position that Adam and Eve had. He didn't want to serve. He wanted to be served.
So he reversed the dominion, he seduced Eve, and then Eve tempted Adam.
And the text lays this out as a complete reversal of the order of love. It should have been God, humans, angel. Instead, it became angel, humans.
And God got pushed out.
Completely inverted. And this leads to one of the most emotional beats in the source material. We often hear about God as a judge, right? Angry at sin, ready to punish. But this text portrays God as a grieving parent.
That really stood out to me. It says God is ashamed and bitter, not because he's vindictive, but because his own family, Adam and Eve, committed this violation within his household.
He was isolated by his own creation.
It connects right back to that lonely God concept we started with. He created them to cure his loneliness, and instead, their actions just isolated him even more.
He became a prisoner of his own love, in a way. The text uses a very visceral analogy here with apples to explain the state of humanity after that.
Oh, right, the rotten apple analogy. This is a really useful visual.
It is. The author says, look at an apple. If an apple has bad skin, maybe it's scarred or ugly, but the seeds inside are healthy, that apple still has value. You can plant it. It can create new life.
But if it looks shiny and perfect on the outside...
But it's rotten in the core. It's trash. It's useless.
And the text argues that fallen human beings are in that second category.
Exactly. We might look polite and civilized on the surface. We wear suits. We follow traffic laws. We look intact. But the claim is that we are rotten on the inside because of this inherited selfishness.
We're still running on the I exist for myself software.
Yeah.
Our seeds are bad.
That's the argument. And that's why the text says that human effort alone can't fix the world. You can polish the skin of that apple all day, but if the seed is rotten, you still have a rotten apple.
Which brings us to the solution proposed in the text. This is where we get into the mission of Jesus, and the source makes a really bold claim. Jesus did not come to start a religion.
No. The text argues religion is just like a repair shop.
Yeah.
Jesus came to do something much more fundamental. He came to establish a family and a nation.
He's described as the second Adam.
Right. The logic being, the first Adam failed by being selfish. So the second Adam has to come and correct that failure by being totally selfless.
And the source highlights love your enemy as the central revolutionary teaching of Jesus.
But it frames it mechanically. It claims this is the most radical idea in history because it goes entirely against our survival instinct. It goes against the selfish circular motion of the fallen world.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you hit me and I hit you back, we're just trading energy in a broken system. But if you hit me and I love you, I've absorbed the impact. I've started a new kind of motion.
I see.
The text uses the crucifixion as the ultimate example. When Jesus was on the cross, praying for the Roman soldiers.
He wasn't just praying for the guy holding the spear.
Right. The text says he was praying for the forgiveness of the entire Roman Empire. He was loving the very entity that was destroying him. That is presented as the absolute standard of goodness. Total investment for the sake of the enemy.
But, and this is where the text really diverges from standard Christian theology, the source claims that Jesus' mission was, in a sense, left incomplete.
This is a crucial point in the document, and yet one that might surprise some listeners. The author argues that because God created men and women to be partners, a man alone is incomplete. He uses the analogy that a man alone is like a person with one foot. You can't stand, you can't walk properly.
Therefore, for Jesus to be the second Adam, a fully realized human reflection of God, he needed a second Eve.
He needed a bride. And the text is very specific here. It explicitly argues against the interpretation that the bride of Christ is just the church in a spiritual sense.
The author actually kind of mocks that idea a little bit.
He does. He asks, how could Jesus kiss an institution?
Which is a funny image, but it underscores a really serious point in the text.
It does. The argument is that you cannot establish a true family, which was the original goal in the garden, without a physical husband and wife.
Ah.
The text asserts that Jesus intended to marry and start a sinless lineage, a physical model of goodness.
But he was rejected and killed before that could happen?
Right. So the crucifixion in this view wasn't the original plan A.
It was a tragedy caused by rejection.
Correct. Because he was killed, he could offer spiritual salvation, he could open the gates to heaven, but he couldn't establish that physical lineage or family structure that God intended on earth.
So the rotten seeds of humanity weren't fully replaced. We got spiritual adoption maybe, but the physical world stayed messy.
Exactly. And hence the need for a second coming. The mission has to be finished.
Okay, so this sets up the future, or the restoration. The text starts talking about the concept of true parents.
Yes. The logic follows a really strict pattern. If the first parents, Adam and Eve, failed, and Jesus was prevented from becoming a physical parent, then the goal of the second advent is what's called the marriage of the Lamb.
Which is the establishment of a perfected man and woman on earth who become true parents.
Right. And the idea is that other humans need to be grafted onto this new lineage.
Like with a tree.
That's the horticultural term used. Yeah, to take a branch from a wild olive tree and graft it onto a cultivated olive tree. It's about changing that internal nature. But what really strikes me is how this theological goal translates into a social critique. The author is very critical of Western individualism.
Yeah, there's a line, selfish individualism is doomed.
It feels like he's looking directly at American culture there.
He is. He proposes a hierarchy of sacrifice. And this is, really interesting for you to consider in your own life. The text says, the individual must sacrifice for the family for the society. It's like a ladder of unselfishness.
Exactly. The society for the nation for the world, and finally the world for God. Every level exists to serve the one above it.
And if you break that chain, if you say, my family comes first, screw society, then you've broken the definition of goodness. You've created a block in the artery.
And the text actually takes a swing at modern Christians on this point, too. It criticizes people who were just looking for my salvation or my ticket to heaven.
It calls that spiritual selfishness.
It does. The text argues that a true religion should be willing to sacrifice itself to save the nation, and a nation should be willing to sacrifice its sovereignty to save the world.
That is a heavy concept. A nation sacrificing its sovereignty. You don't hear politicians running on that platform, vote for me and I'll dissolve our borders to help the world.
You certainly don't. But the text argues that is the only way peace is actually possible. As long as nations say, my interests first, they're just acting like the fallen archangel. They're saying, I exist for myself.
And this leads to this pivotal theological shift in the text. Usually people ask God to save them. God, help me. God, liberate me. This text flips it. It says humans must liberate God's heart.
Because God is that grieving parent we talked about earlier.
Right. If your father is sitting in the living room crying because the family is falling apart, you don't walk in and ask him for your allowance.
Exactly. You try to fix the family to stop his crying. The text argues that the good child is the one who tries to relieve the parent's sorrow, not the one asking the parent to solve their problems.
It's a call to maturity.
It is. It says, stop acting like children asking for candy and start acting like sons and daughters who take responsibility.
So bringing this all together, we've gone from a lonely God investing 100% into creation to the disruption of that flow by selfishness, which is evil. Then Jesus comes as the second Adam to try and restore a physical kingdom of love, but is killed, leading to the necessity of true parents to finish the job.
That's the narrative arc. It's a comprehensive history of restoration. And it culminates in a very, very bold claim about human potential.
The perfection claim.
Yes, most of us think, well, I'm only human, I make mistakes. We almost wear it like a badge of honor. This text just challenges that head on. It says humans are designed to be temples of God.
Meaning literal dwelling places for the divine.
Yes, it argues that perfection defined as a state where your will and God's will are identical is actually possible. The text claims a human being can reach a point where they just naturally resonate with goodness.
So you wouldn't have to force yourself to be good. You wouldn't be gritting your teeth trying to be nice. You would just be good.
Where there's no conflict between what you want to do and what you should do. You want to serve others the same way you want to eat when you're hungry. It becomes instinct.
It's an incredibly high bar. It makes you look at your own life and realize just how far away that standard is.
It is. And the text suggests this change won't happen through legislation or war. You can't pass a law that makes people love their enemies. It calls for a quiet revolution.
Our revolution of the heart.
Moving from selfishness to unselfishness, one person at a time, fixing that internal seed.
And I think that's where we should probably leave you thinking today. I mean, this source defines good not just as, following some rules,
Right.
but as total self-sacrifice for the greater whole.
Hmm.
So if that is the actual standard, if goodness is purely about living for the benefit of that larger circle, how many of the good deeds we did today actually meet that standard?
And if we apply that give and take principle, are we creating circular motion in our relationships? When we talk to our spouse or our boss or our kids, are we giving 100% to keep the energy flowing, or are we acting like a black hole that just stops the motion?
Deep questions from a deep text. It certainly gives you a different lens to view the world through. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.